What is good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another SK Wealth Academy podcast. Now, if you're listening to this as an audio file only on skwealthacademy.podbean.com, I do apologize for the lower quality of the audio, but this is only temporary. It will only be for this podcast because my professional audio recording device has gone on the fritz. I think it's dying and I will need to purchase a new one. So I will do that, and then we'll go back to I'll have a separate audio recording device for all my podcasts, and I will use that in the future as I have in the past to record the audio only files on Podbean, so the audio quality will return to normal for the next podcast. So in this one, I want to talk about why India, for anyone that's been keeping track, is clearly a testing ground for the Great Reset directives or the New World Order. I think the New World Order has just been rebranded as the Great Reset. And why I say that is because we've been seeing moves for at least the last 5 years of all the directives that the billionaire oligarchs want to take place in this world, including Bill Gates, including the members of the World Economic Forum, including all the billionaires that always meet every year, like the ex-CEOs of Alphabet and Google, Eric Schmidt and Sergey, whatever his last name is. And if we look at India, for example, they overnight banned 86% of their cash in circulation in 2016. That's something, of course, we know that the billionaire oligarchs have been wanting to expedite for a long time now, and have been using the COVID to do it, to expedite the banning of all cash and coins to go to 100% digital. We've seen them create a digital database for nearly 85 to 90% of their citizens almost overnight, after being called by MasterCard as one of the least prepared nations to digitize their economy. They all of a sudden had a digital fingerprint for nearly 90% of their 1.1 billion citizens at the time, although their population has grown to 1.3 billion by now. They also tried to demonetize gold and tried to basically steal their citizens' golds and give them a useless piece of paper in return. 5 years ago, in response to that, I published an article on my news site at malamalama.com/WordPress saying Indian citizens, don't be fooled by your snake of a Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, who is trying to dupe you of your physical gold, which is the only sound money you hold, because we all know the rupee is garbage, and he's trying to give you worthless paper in return, which is almost a demonic demonetization scheme that Modi, as well as his ties to mass media journalism outlets, distribution outlets like Reuters and Bloomberg and whoever else out there, was calling his demonic demonetization scheme a gold monetization scheme, quite comically and laughably, because it was the exact opposite of that. So I said, don't let this demon Modi basically steal your physical gold and your sound money and turn it into worthless paper. Also, we see that Modi and India welcomes Monsanto, now of course acquired by Bayer, and that their government, led by the snake PM Modi, is choosing big corporations over the welfare of their citizens by promoting Monsanto, giving Monsanto basically open doors to their economy, allowing them to drive, this past year, over 10,000 farmers into such poverty, such depression, that 10,000 farmers in India over the past year committed suicide. But of course, a snake like Modi will never care about the welfare of his citizens. He only cares about the big profits and the companies that can put money in his pocket that work against the best interests of the people in India, and that would include Monsanto. So these are all things I'm going to speak about, of course, which I give my props to Vandana Shiva, who is an Indian environmentalist who has always railed against Monsanto as the demonic company that they are. Although I really haven't heard her speak out against Modi so much as I have, because I know Modi is extremely popular with Indian Americans. Now, that always had kind of perplexed me for a long time, because I, was wondering, why are Indian Americans so supportive of Narendra Modi, and they lose their minds if you say anything negative, point out negative truths, not negative smears and negative speculation against Modi. Basically, if you point out negative truths and facts about Modi, they lose their mind. And I was thinking, why is that? And my answer in my research was uncovered because a lot of US-based Hindu nationalist groups that are directly in line politically with Modi's very extremist, racist, nationalistic think, as far as promoting just Hindus to the top of the caste system that is still alive and well in India, and then really promotes second-class citizenry and third-class citizenry for any person in India that is not a Hindu. So Modi has always had very strong ties to these Hindu extremist groups, and he sells it as nationalism. He sells it as Indian nationalism, but that's what a snake does. A snake is very deceptive. And a lot of these ties, like the Texas India Forum, which brought Modi to Houston to speak in the Astrodome, to thousands, I think it was hundreds of thousands of adoring Indian Americans, this is the reason why, is because Modi has fostered ties with these extremist Hindu groups in the United States to build sympathy within the Indian American community. And know this, that the US government rejected at one point Modi's visa application to visit America because of Modi's direct ties to overseeing a lot of violence against Muslims in India, as part of his extremist Hindu message in India. So, and this is one thing that was never covered by the media in America. At least I didn't see any coverage of this, is that fact that there are a lot of cultural minorities, including Indian Christians and Muslims and Buddhists and Sikhs, that protested Modi's visit in Houston outside of the Astrodome. All they showed was adoring Indian Americans, praising Modi when Modi visited Houston in America. And I have studied all of these religions. I've lived in primarily Buddhist countries for a long time. I've been in Asia. I grew up a Christian. I've had lots of Sikh friends in Asia, as well as Muslim friends. So I've learned a lot about those religions through my friendships with people. And actually, there's religions that are very strong in India. I would say I admire the Sikhs the most for their open-mindedness, for their the love and community they show to everyone. You don't have to be a Sikh to receive a lot of support and help from other Sikhs. Sikhs believe in helping everyone. So I would say of all those, I would definitely, although the Sikhs are a real, a super minority, I don't even think they make up 2% of the population in India. Of all those people, I'd rather have see the Sikhs in control over the Hindus. And again, the people that protested, amongst them Indian Sikhs, Indian American Sikhs, that protested Modi's visit, basically they stood in unity with the Alliance for Justice and Accountability, and said, because we're standing up for our kin who are facing great deals of oppression and atrocity at home. A lot of people don't know what the Muslims in Kashmir are going through under Modi's reign, and we won't be silenced in the face of that violence, end quote. So if you don't know, I really highly encourage you to go look at what is going on in Kashmir and how Modi is just treating people in Kashmir that are not Hindus like dogs. So let's start with some of the things Modi did in 2016, because he banned overnight the use of 86% of all Indian rupees in circulation. So he banned the 1,000 rupee note and the 500 rupee note. And overnight, and what you had to understand is that the Indian economy at that time was 98% cash. So he took the ability of the Indians that needed the most as a 98% cash-based economy to even buy food. And that prompted a scathing, furious critique of Modi by former Indian Finance Minister P. Chidambaram. And Chidambaram said, quote, when Modi disputed Chidambaram's critiques and said, oh, what are you talking about? We went digital a long time ago. People have access to digital money. They're not going to starve to death, because Modi flippantly just dismissed the facts that he was causing thousands of deaths in his own nations because, of course, as all snake politicians are, they could care less about the poor dying. The poor are marginal people to just throw out in the garbage. So Modi said, oh, these people have access to money. We digitize the economy. They can eat. And Chidambaram said, you go there, meaning the rural areas of India, of course, which are the poorest, and the people ask, what digital? What digital, Modi? It is very difficult to get away with a lie. The best way to do so is to utter the biggest lie, end quote. So, again, Chidambaram called out Modi's false claims. He called out his fake news and said, look, you wipe out 85% of the cash in circulation overnight. The poor people are not going to be able to buy food to eat. And he said thousands of people are going to die, which would make you one of the worst serial killers in the history of the world because of your decree. And again, there was of course, it's really hard to find out how many thousands of people Modi killed by doing this. But again, as part of the Great Reset, they don't care, because look, the same thing is going on now. Because people say, in response to some people like me that are telling the truth about the very low level of lethality of this virus, even when directly quoting statistics from the CDC, like a 99.98% survival rate of anyone 19 years of age and younger, and a 99.7%, I believe, survival rate for anyone that is 50 years of age and younger. So why are all these extreme lockdowns going on? Why does Florida and California, who implemented two diametrically opposed responses to this, like Florida's pretty open now, children are going to school. California, the governor shut down everything, still shut down restaurants, won't let businesses operate, won't let entrepreneurs make money in response to saying, oh, this virus is so dangerous. But yet, one state is open, fairly open, I guess. I don't know in Florida if they're still telling people wear masks or whatever, but the economy is fairly open, especially in comparison to California, but yet you have the same rate of infections per 100,000 people. Same rate. So what is going on here, right? And the same rate of deaths as well. So what is going on? Okay, so any rational person would question the motives of the billionaire oligarchs like Bill Gates that has no medical background. I probably could probably know 10 times more than he does about viruses and viral transmission, but yet he's the person that is saying that life will not return to normal until every single person in the world is immunized. When I just told you, why would you immunize children when their survival rate is 99.98% against this? And again, I'm trying to avoid as much bias as I can, based upon my feelings about this, because I said I have admitted that those CDC survival rates are probably skewed a little higher than they should be, because they're looking at, so that's a survival rate for 100,000 people infected, right? So not just 100,000 citizens. That's not the survival rate per capita based upon how many citizens are in the United States. So that's per infection, right? 99.98% if you're 19 years of age and younger. So I said they're probably a little skewed because guess what? They're saying people that are asymptomatic are infected, and we all know that PCR test is bogus. So they have lots of false positives, so people are being counted as infected that really aren't infected. So that skews it a little higher, but still, it's probably still a very, very high number, and we could see from the extremely low mortality rate of anyone that's 50 years of age and younger, the absolute absurd kind of reaction that is going on. So again, we see some of the things going on in India, like the same tactics being taken in America. Same things are going on. So were I to decide who to believe, Chidambaram or Modi, if they issue 10,000 statements about economy, I would believe Chidambaram 10,000 times or to 10,000 times over Modi. So, and recall that just 5 years ago as well, right? On my own news site, I called Modi a complete liar for promoting a gold monetization scheme, and he tried to do this. Look how much of a snake this guy is. So it blows my mind that Indian Americans love him and just like scream at me when I call out that Modi's this great deceiver. That's pretty much like the devil incarnate as far as like what he's doing in India to really harm people, and they see him as this great savior, so they see him exactly as opposite of what he really is. So again, he said, hey, bring your physical gold to Indian banks, and we in turn will give you this worthless gold paper certificate, which will be a gold bond, and we'll pay you 2.75% annually. Not compounding. There's no compounding. He said 2.75% on the initial amount that you deposited in the bank. Okay, so I told people, don't do this, because you take it to the bank, you'll probably never see your physical gold again. I don't care what they say in that agreement with you. If you can get it back after a year or 5 years, whatever, trust me, they can just change the law, say you don't have any access to it. Now we'll give you the paper rupee equivalent of that gold, and probably not even. They'll probably give you the paper equivalent price of what it was when you brought it in. So I said, look, if you take that 2.75%, I'm going to come personally slap you in the face myself if you do that. I'll fly to India and slap you in the face for doing that, because I'm telling you, I know this, and I said this in 2015. I said, I know that this is a huge scam, and you're going to be weeping tears if you do this. And thank God that program was pretty much a failure, because most Indians know what was going on there. So let me tell you how that scheme worked out. So say you took $50,000 worth of your gold and you got this worthless paper certificate, and he was paying you 2.75% per year. Okay, what that would have given you is what's 2.75% on 50,000? It's basically $1,375 per year. And the first opportunity you have to really take back your gold was after 5 years. Like I said, who knows really if people were able to do that. But in any event, at $1,375 per year for 5 years, you get $6,875. Now, let me tell you, when they started this program, when I wrote an article saying, if you do this, I will fly to India, you personally slap you in the face for being so dumb. In November 26th of 2015, I'll put a link if you don't believe me to that. I wrote that, or I didn't say I'll personally fly to India and slap you in the face, but that's what I felt like. I was like, man, if this snakes anyone out of their sound money, I'll be so upset, and I don't even have any ties into India. I just get upset when world leaders can dupe people like that. So like I said, you would have received a profit of $6,875 on your $50,000 worth of gold had you taken it in when he started that program, November 26, 2015. You know what the price of gold was? Okay, and this is in dollars and rupees. The appreciation was even more. So this is like, I'm giving you the worst case scenario if you kept your physical gold. The price in US dollars was 1,068. And I should really figure this out in rupees. If you want to do this, I know the profit in rupees was much greater, which of course is more important to Indians. So I just looked at dollars, unfortunately. I don't know why. I'm a dummy. I should have looked at Indian rupees, what the price was back then. So by now, or November 26th of 2020, just 5 years later, the price of gold increased in US dollars to 1,810. Guess what? That's 69.5% profits. I'm sure it's well over 75% in rupees, probably well over 80%. So again, this is the worst case scenario. You know what that US dollar amount translates into? So that $50,000 worth of gold went from $50,000 up to $84,738. Now remember, if you had brought that into what you did, what Modi wanted you to do, your $50,000 was only worth $56,875, per his 2.75% per annum that he was paying you. So in essence, you got paid less than $28,000 less if you believe Modi, versus if you just hold on to your physical gold. Your price appreciation would have been $28,000 more. And I told you the Indian rupee equivalent was even greater. So again, that is how much of a snake Modi is. And I can't believe when all this stuff in hindsight is right out there for anyone to see. The second thing that he's done is that you could see that again, the whole movement to change the economy into 100% digital, right? That, of course, is to get more control over us, because we say anything, like if I'm Indian, I was living in India, say this against Modi, guess what? Modi's going to say, hey, go find out who this guy is and turn off all his accessibility to his digital money. And bam, I'm homeless out in the streets, right? Well, I wouldn't be, because if I were living in India, of course, I'd be buying physical gold and silver, not being a dumbass, not taking my gold to the bank like Modi was trying to direct me to do, and nobody would know, and I would still have that. And if Modi changed the law where I couldn't sell my gold in India, I don't care. I'll go out to another country and then sell it when I needed, fiat currency to spend for food, for anything else. So in any event, okay, what they did was they also formed a digital identification number. They gave a unique digital identification number based upon fingerprints and retinal scans for 95% of 1.1 billion Indians. And they did this a few years ago when MasterCard called them among the worst prepared nations in the entire world for digital economy. So there you go again. We can see that India is the stomping ground for these billionaire oligarchs in their new world order. They're testing everything. So you want to know what's coming to your nation? Just look at what's happening in India. And that's also why India, you don't hear Russia referring to India and the BRICS anymore, because I can guarantee you they see what's going on and they're not welcome in that BRIC affiliation. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. India is going to be kicked out because they're firmly into the new world order. Modi's firmly, obviously, whatever, money's being funneled into his secret accounts somewhere. Modi's firmly in the back pockets of all these, demons out there that want this great reset and this new world order to go forward. So again, if you look at this global digital transformation that's really, really pushing aggressively forward in India, although, as I just mentioned, it didn't really reach a lot of the rural areas even in 2016, although this was done years ago, this digital ID by which you can open up a bank account with that, get a credit card with it. There's no need for any other ID than this digital ID to basically participate in this Indian digital economy anymore. And again, if you look at Monsanto, India's relationship with Monsanto, that's now Bayer. Okay, let's go over that. So when we look at this, which I see is a repugnant relationship that Modi loves with Monsanto. Monsanto, of course, with all the GMO crops, they sell it hand in hand with Roundup. What's Roundup? Roundup is the pesticide that's used with all Monsanto GMO seeds and crops. And Roundup has glyphosate, which is now linked to the development of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and many, many other types of cancer. I think I wrote it down, what other types of cancer it has also been linked to. And so Monsanto, they market Roundup along with their GMO seeds. And for years, even though I'm sure it will come out in court if it already hasn't, because, this class action lawsuit is still going on, Monsanto denied claims that their Roundup ever caused cancer. In fact, they had a lawyer that in court said Roundup is as safe to drink as a glass of water. And I think that an attorney that was representing the opposite side, I think, poured out a glass of Roundup and said, if it's safe as word, then here, go ahead and drink it. Of course, the Monsanto lawyer, being the snake he was, would not, because he knows that it would cause cancer back then, most likely. So I don't want to get like banned for saying anything that hasn't been proven to be true, but I'm saying most likely that lawyer knew, if he's working for Monsanto, that it caused cancer, because by now, today, they know, because they've agreed to pay $10 to $10.9 billion to address all the grievances for all the people that have cancer now, because they didn't wear any protective gear when spraying their GMO crops with Roundup, which causes cancer. So not only does it cause rare form of cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, that affects the lymph nodes, and of course you need healthy working lymph nodes because they produce white blood cells, which fight, viruses and other disease that your body may be exposed to. But glyphosate has also been linked in other studies to chromosomal damage in cells, other formations of tumors, degradation and illness and non-functioning of the colon, the kidney, the liver, the pancreas. It's been linked to causing melanoma, dysfunction of the thyroid gland. And so it's so funny that Monsanto lawyer in court said at one point that Roundup was as safe as drinking water. There was like no threat whatsoever. That's how demonic these companies are and these people are. And not only that, the U.S. Supreme Court, to show you, like, for people that have a lot of respect for the U.S. Supreme Court, they threw out a lawsuit in 2011 from the Organic Seed Growers and Trade Association and over 80 other plaintiffs on that lawsuit against Monsanto that were challenging Monsanto's ability to file lawsuits from farmers whose fields were contaminated from their GMO seeds. Because, in other words, if there were like some winds that carry pollen from other crops onto their seeds and polluted their organic seeds, Monsanto would go then sue these farmers, which is just absurd, for intellectual property theft. Because you would say, oh, look, some of your crops now have our GMO, intellectual property embedded in your crops, so we're going to sue you, and you can't grow anything but Monsanto GMO crops on your land now. So they wanted protection against this really evil directive of Monsanto and the U.S. Supreme Court, and this included corn, soybeans, cotton, canola, and others, because they said, look, farmers, their beef with Monsanto was like, it's almost impossible for us to protect our crops from not showing any contaminated traces of your company's biotechnology products if the adjacent farmland is planting your seeds. It said basically it's eventually going to contain traces, which and Monsanto said, we're not going to do that. And traces, that their definition of traces in court were that the crops that they said were stealing their intellectual property, if less than 1% of their crops were found having any of their GMO seeds growing on their land, because it just blew over onto their land, less than 1%, they said, we're going to sue you and try to bankrupt you unless you get on board and just grow our crops. So that's another reason, because they bankrupted Indian farmers with this evil plot. And that's why 10,000 farmers in India committed suicide last year. So the founder, executive director of Food Democracy now said, once again, Americans, because this lawsuit was denied in America, I'm sure it was denied in India. Once again, Americans farmers have been denied justice while Monsanto's reign of intimidation is allowed to continue in rural America. Guess who was upholding injustice and intimidation? The U.S. Supreme Court. And, quote, he said, Monsanto can patent seeds for financial gain. They should be forced to pay for contaminating a farmer's field, not be allowed to sue them, which they have been actively doing. Monsanto has effectively gotten away with stealing the world's seed heritage and abusing farmers for the flawed nature of their patented seed technology. This is an outrageous outrage of historic proportions and will not stand, end quote. So that's how outraged the founder executive director David Murphy of Food Democracy Now! Was. But of course, the U.S. Supreme Court judges sided with Monsanto, as they always do. So and to say Modi is not a complete snake for not banning Monsanto, look, there are 38 nations in the world that banned Monsanto seeds from growing in their nations, including France, Germany, Austria, Greece, Hungary, Netherlands, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Bulgaria, Poland, Denmark, Malta, Slovenia, Italy, Croatia, Algeria, Madagascar, Turkey, Kyrgyzstan, Bhutan, Saudi Arabia, Belize, Ecuador, Peru, Venezuela. So there are plenty of nations that have banned that, which, I guarantee you, if a government allows, with all these studies out there that show how harmful GMO crops are, especially when combined with Roundup, right? If a government has allowed, I guarantee you those governments are getting kickbacks from Monsanto. They're getting some kind of bribes, that government is corrupt, those politicians are corrupt, and getting some kind of kickback. So again, if you want to know what's coming to your country, just look at what Modi is doing in India. And again, I forgot even this when I said Modi tried to sell those gold bonds that he said was a gold monetization plan, when clearly anyone that understands anything about finance and money knows that was a gold demonetization plan, which shows you how much of the financial journalism industry has been sold to complete prostitutes and whores, because all Reuters and Bloomberg, they were right on board, along with some gold, this is crazy, along with some gold advocacy sites were calling this Indian gold monetization plan. It just shows you that sellouts galore are functioning in this world. Modi said gold bonds can quote unquote empower women. He was trying to use this, his complete fraudulent lying plan to dupe women, saying, I'm going to use this to empower women. If you want to be empowered, bring your physical gold and get a worthless paper certificate that's going to pay you 2.75% in return, when you can be making multiples of that every year by just holding on to your physical gold. And Modi said, quote, please don't let your gold be dead money. Gold is very important for the country. Gold can be an economic strength for us, end quote. Yeah, meaning bring all your physical gold to the banks, so you give up your power. You give up your power to stand against the banking snakes in our nation. That's what he was basically saying. So again, if you want to know what is going on in this world, just look at what India is doing. They are the testing ground for the Great Reset. So and I also told you, remember, that they are banning Bitcoin soon. So they brought up legislation in which they are going to completely ban Bitcoin. And of course, why are they banning Bitcoin? Because the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, has their own cryptocurrency, and they don't want any competition. So that doesn't mean, because some of you have heard my Trojan horse theory, that there was a central bank, most likely the Bank of England or the Central Bank of the United States, that was involved in the development of Bitcoin. It doesn't mean that can't be true if other central banks, because I believe, like, number one, I said the whole purpose of this is to divert money away from gold and silver, because as you notice, only times really gold and silver go way up is when either Bitcoin prices are kind of, just going back and forth. But when Bitcoin prices are soaring, it completely diverts any money away from the physical gold or physical silver markets. And when Bitcoin drops, a lot of times you will see gold and silver prices go up. So this is a completely central banking diversionary tactic to funnel money out of gold and silver, because it's much more important. Think about this. There was a U.S. central banker, Bullard, I think was his name, that said Bitcoin, even at 50,000, is not a threat to the U.S. dollar. Do you think in the past, if you know your history, and I know most people in the world don't know their monetary history, because monetary history is not taught in any schools, not taught in any MBA program in the entire world, and perhaps unless it's an Austrian, it's a business school that focuses on Austrian economics, maybe you know your monetary history. But there was a U.S. central banker, either chairman or a vice chairman. It could have been a vice chairman. I can't recall the name off the top of my head. I'll look and see if I can find that so I can say in the next podcast. But he basically said that in the meetings that the first thing the chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve, I can't remember his Greenspan at that time, or if it was Volcker, Paul Volcker, I can't remember which one, said the first thing that the chairman of the U.S. Central Bank asked in all their meetings is, what was the price of gold? What was the price of gold? You think if gold was at $50,000, there's any central banker that said gold at $50,000 wouldn't promote a threat, wouldn't pose a threat to the U.S. dollar? So that kind of shows you. It should, at least the people that aren't blinded by their confirmation bias, that what they should show that how Bitcoin is being used to suppress gold prices, like the price of Bitcoin. And so, it might have been even to normalize people into cryptocurrencies, because I would not be surprised if the U.S. follows suit. Because I said whatever happens in India is kind of the blueprint for what's going to happen in other nations abroad, that they don't make Bitcoin illegal in the U.S. economy soon as well, and then introduce a U.S. Federal Reserve-backed cryptocurrency. That could be the plan, possibly. Could be. I really need to really research that more to understand if that could be the possible plan. So that is all for today. The other thing I want to talk about in the future, which has to do with global warming, because you know what, one of the biggest contributors to global warming is the destruction of the rainforest. But you never hear about that because who's destroying the rainforest? The billionaire oligarchs are destroying the rainforest, especially in Indonesia, to plant palm oil plantations, and it's ruining biodiversity. It's of the rainforest, and we all know that local biodiversity is super important to a healthy planet. And they're planting like a single crop, like palm oil plantations, and they're destroying millions and millions of acres of rainforest in order to do this. Because a lot of people don't know that palm oil is found in almost half of all supermarket products, because there's a reason for this. So I'm going to talk about the necessity of biodiversity and everything. We need biodiversity for our gut. As far as to have a healthy gut and healthy immune system, we need biodiversity in thought, because that's what all the big techs are trying to do, censor any biodiversity of thought like I'm offering. No. If it opposes the consensus narrative in the mainstream, you cannot have it. You cannot have any biodiversity of thought. We need biodiversity of life on this planet. And of course, if you just clear all this rainforest, and guess what? Rainforest absorbs a lot of carbon dioxide and then produces a lot of oxygen. So you want to know what is more important to global warming and more carbon dioxide emissions than man-made like factories? It's rainforest destruction. So I'll talk about that in the next podcast. So thanks so much for watching. If you want to become a Patreon and receive high value bonus content, because every single week I give my patrons high bonus content about how to build your wealth through gold and silver assets. I do talk about cryptocurrencies every once in a while, but only honestly only once in a blue moon do I discuss that. I'm primarily concentrate on gold and silver assets, and then individual stocks, and then also keeping an eye on when I feel the US stock market will collapse, because of course when that happens, then the CAC in France will collapse, the DAX in Germany will collapse, the FTSE in the UK will collapse, along with the collapse of the S&P 500, which I believe will be at some point this year in 2021. And so you get all that information, plus you get 3 at the transcendent level, 2 additional bonus podcasts every month at the benefactor level, 3 additional bonus podcasts, and long format bonus podcasts, like 40 minutes, an hour long podcasts, 3 of them every single month as a Patreon. So if you'd like to support me, because I've not made 1 penny of advertising revenue over the past 15 years, please go to Patreon. Thank you so much for my current supporters. Thank you so much as well for those that support me on my GoFundMe campaign to launch my second entrepreneurial endeavor, SK Wealth Academy, which has courses I developed over the span of the last 10 years that will raise critical thinking, that will raise exactly a type of thought processes that prevent people from getting duped by like Modi in India, by these plans that are clearly the opposite of what is being promoted. And so if thanks so much. And someone just donated $500 to me this past week. Thank you so much. I don't know this. It said that was an anonymous donor, so I want to give you my gratitude for donating, and gratitude towards everyone that donated. It doesn't matter if you donated $10. Thank you so much as well. So I'm not just, of course, I just don't have gratitude to the big donors. I have gratitude to everyone, because what I'm trying to do most importantly at SK Wealth Academy is to build a global community of people that really are socially conscious, that want to pursue endeavors that improve, that leave a good social footprint in not only our local communities, but help our global communities as well. So I really want that to be, because, you know, so many people, we just have admiration for people that make a lot of money. And I've always said this. I've always said, if someone told me I had to make $1 million or get a bullet in the head by the end of this year, I could do it. I could do it. I have to exploit a lot of people, because that's why we shouldn't admire people that are just very wealthy. A lot of people think people that are wealthy, they're smart. No. A lot of them are just wealthy because they're willing to exploit a lot of naive, gullible people that can be exploited. As Goldman Sachs even said during the 2008 crisis, when they exploited their clients by opening up positions that were actually in opposition to their clients' positions of products Goldman Sachs sold to their clients. They called their clients Muppets. That's what they call them, Muppets, meaning stupid, like wealthy people that are dumb that we can dupe. They're Muppets. So if I want to exploit a lot of people, I know I'll be able to make $1 million in a year, but I'm not willing to do that, is what I'm saying. Like if you told me, someone told me, hey, I'll give you $1 million if you can make $1 million. I don't know if I could do that without exploiting naive, gullible people. So I would, like, of course, I would never run a business that way, you know? So I said I could do it if someone put a bullet to my head, because then what I do is I make that $1 million and then just give it back so I can live, you know, give it back to everyone that I exploited by doing that. So again, we have to get over this notion that, you know, really wealthy people are really smart and that we should listen to them. They may be, but a lot of times they're not. A lot of times they just know how to exploit other people and make their wealth. So that is something, the critical thought process is something that I focus on a lot in my SK Wealth Academy, as well as the reality of how this, like, pricing mechanisms actually work. I put out a audio podcast that shows how silver futures margins are hiked by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange to basically to basically cause an artificial decline in silver prices. That was only up for 48 hours. If you want to know, I'll probably bring that back for another 40 hours. Just subscribe to my newsletter. Go to my new site at malamalama.com/WordPress. And I'll bring that back for another 48-hour limited period, because that was a podcast only made available to my Patreons, which I made available for free for a very limited time. Some people ask me, say, hey, I missed it. I really want to listen to it. So I'll probably bring it back for maybe another 24 to 48 hours. If you want to find out when, subscribe to my newsletter. I'll put it in one of my newsletters coming up when it's going to go back up, but then I'll only be a limited time again. And if you really want to learn about sound money, then just go to my website, download my free ebook, The Golden Gift, because I have this parable I tell, which is super simple to explain, super simple to understand, as far as why our fiat currency system is so immoral and so much against the best interest of all of us. Nobody is, you know how you hear that all the time, hey, all of us can become billionaires. Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and work really hard. No, that is not true. And my book, The Golden Gift, explains why it's not true. We're not all on an equal level as far as the playing field. The billionaires are starting here. If it's a 100-meter race, even Usain Bolt is not going to win, because Usain Bolt is going to be, even though Usain Bolt's a millionaire, he's going to be starting at the starting point, 100 meters. The billionaire oligarchs started meter number 99. So you think Usain Bolt can run 100 meters faster than the billionaires can run 1 meter? And that's where Usain Bolt is as a millionaire in a 100-meter race. He's 100 meters behind. We are a kilometer behind. And then the poor are 100 kilometers behind. That is the reality. So read my ebook, The Golden Gift, if you really want to understand that. Thanks so much for watching. Always remain intensely curious. And more importantly, always remain immensely courageous. Take care.